Yo! Hey everybody, I'm Klukas. I'm an artist based in Bangkok and also partly in New York. And I'm doing an interview here from Mount Gallery. I'm really trying to keep things focused on what's immediate. I flew back to the States to be here during this time so I could be close to family and friends. And so I'm trying to help out, do grocery shops for my folks, and just kind of be there for my friends, get the studio kind of organized and cleaned up and kind of make some plans for the future. But really, right now I'm focused on things that are more immediate term. To be honest, I'm feeling a bit up and down. My friend's mom passed away last week from coronavirus, and some of my friends have already gotten it, and so it's something that's very real and is definitely having a big impact on my life. I mean, people talk about it every day. It seems to be more or less the elephant in the room, so there's really kind of no way around it. How is it affecting my work? My work deals largely with connection, and part of the way I convey some of my internal states and my emotions and stuff is through other people. So I select a model or another artist and we work together and try to kind of like evoke what I'm hoping to see appear on the final print. And I try to, work through them to realize a part of myself. So that's testament to it being really important, that connection being really important. And obviously during this time, we're all trying to do our part to kind of distance and isolate. And so it makes it more or less impossible to do that. So I'm more just planning for the future and kind of saving reference images and working out ideas and how I might create them later. But right now, there's kind of a necessary pause on creating new work. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the art market in general. I focus on creating the work, and then hopefully with the gallery find people are interested in it, people who really the work speaks to them. And so that part remains the same for me. Part that's different, I think, is that galleries are now obviously working exclusively online in most places for a bit as everything's closed. And so on the one hand, it's not the ideal situation to sell art. I think it's important to be in the same physical space and develop a relationship with the piece. On the other hand, it's also good that it's right now and that you can continue to connect people with artwork via the internet. I think that remains important. I'm comfortable, talking at great length, probably unfortunately, about my work. So I'm happy to try to demystify it or further explain it to the extent that it's helpful and it doesn't just kind of dominate how people interpret it. I obviously think there needs to be some mystery, like that's part of what's kind of amazing. You have to have some space for the person viewing the work to exist in there as well and to allow them to kind of create their own personal experience with it. So I think that's important. But on the flip side, I'm definitely happy to, whether through videos or writing, to kind of describe, some of the larger themes that occur in my work and how they're personally meaningful to me, and why I think there is a universal aspect to a lot of what I do, and how a lot of people might be able to connect to that. I think the pandemic is or rather the social isolation that comes with it is drawing into sharp relief just how important art is. I mean, we all need some solace, we all need some comfort now, especially those of us who have to self-isolate or quarantine. And we're getting that from art, we're getting that from beautiful visual art, we're getting that from music or poetry. I mean, I think if anything, the pandemic is reminding us just how essential artwork is. It's having an effect right now for all of us, like with our relationship with art, with having to move to looking at things online, which is such a very constrained experience and so completely different. It forms a very different relationship with artwork. And obviously, as adults, hopefully we've already been to a lot of galleries and a lot of museums, and we've got to experience this. But for children, obviously, they're not getting that right now. And hopefully it's just a gap of whatever it is, a year, 18 months, or 2 years, or however long it takes before things return to some semblance of normal. But I think that's one of the tough things about selling art online and about viewing art in any way other than in actually being in the room with the piece or being able to experience a piece. And I kind of think about Yayoi Kusama's work, like her infinity rooms, which for me were really powerful. And you stand in this black room and all the walls are mirrored and there's these dangling lights and it all goes dark and then these lights kind of glow and they flash and they do different things and then they're reflected to infinity all around you. And I just remember how influential this moment was for me to see this work and how it really helped me to understand how far you can bring people into your world and how extremely important that is. And ever since then, when I think about shows, I take into consideration that I can bring people quite a bit further into my world, into understanding my work, than to just have something on a wall. And I think you run into a real challenge with that, with people viewing everything on their phones or viewing everything on their computers. I think that's a very real hurdle. Another example of that is Jackson Pollock's work. I remember seeing a piece of his in Chicago and just being really, really moved by it. And it's this massive scale, and the chaos on the canvas is wild and it's gorgeous, and it has a certain level of structure and a certain level of kind of organization, but at the same time it's kind of born out of this chaos. And I remember seeing a picture of the same piece in like textbooks or online and it really not having much of an effect, but actually being there in front of it, it was awesome. I mean, it was such a strong, beautiful piece. And so we are all missing out on that. And we're all a little bit poorer for not being able to go and indulge ourselves and have these relationships with art. And in terms of my own work, like I do think it's important. Like I spend a lot of time worrying about how it's presented and the size of the pieces and the impact they have. And you labor over all these tiny details so that when people are actually in the same space as your artwork, they can really connect to it. And that's really important for me. And so that's going to be lacking with the online part of it. I mean, you can to some extent do stuff with pictures of details or whatever, but in the end, you're still not going to have, you're still looking at it on your screen. You're not looking at it in person, and you're not really taking the time. Like that's the nice thing. Galleries and museums are these spaces specifically for art. They give you time, they give you space to view art and kind of develop a relationship with it. And without those, there's a lot of background noise, whether you're like, sitting on the subway looking at art on, your like 4.5-inch screen, whether you're at home and your neighbor's playing music and you got all this other stuff going on and you're cooking dinner, like it's really not the same kind of thing. So I do worry that everyone, not just children, is missing out on that. And while I do think, those relationships are very important for children to develop, at the same time, I think, we will get back to that. So in the end, I don't think they'll have missed much. It'll just be a little blip in time. But for adults, I feel, given that we've had time to really establish strong relationships with art already, it is challenging to not be able to go out and actually interact with the artwork.